Scene script. Have you ever wondered why a hot cup of coffee cools down when left on a table? The answer lies buried in the fundamental principles of thermodynamics, particularly the Zeroth Law. Now you might be scratching your head and thinking, Zeroth Law? Surely laws start from 1. But in the world of thermodynamics, the Zeroth Law holds a special place. The Zeroth Law of Thermodynamics, despite its somewhat unusual name, forms the very foundation of temperature measurement and thermal equilibrium. Dive into the world of thermodynamics and you'll find that the Zeroth Law is essentially about equilibrium. Imagine 3 bodies, A, B, and C. If A is in thermal equilibrium with B, and B is also in thermal equilibrium with C, then A must be in thermal equilibrium with C. Sounds simple enough, right? But this seemingly simple concept forms the backbone of how we understand and measure temperature. Think of it this way. When your hot cup of coffee is left on a table, it eventually cools down. Why? Because it's trying to reach a state of thermal equilibrium with its surroundings. The same principle applies to why ice melts in warm water. It's all about everything trying to reach a state of balance or equilibrium. So, what's the big deal about thermal equilibrium? Well, it's the very reason we can measure temperature. Consider the humble thermometer. It measures temperature because it reaches thermal equilibrium with whatever it's measuring. If it's in boiling water, it heats up until it matches the water's temperature. If it's in icy water, it cools down until it matches the temperature of the ice. It's all thanks to the Zeroth Law of Thermodynamics. In essence, the Zeroth Law of Thermodynamics is a simple yet powerful concept. It's the principle that allows us to measure temperature and understand how heat transfers. It tells us that if 2 bodies are each in thermal equilibrium with a third body, then they must be in thermal equilibrium with each other. This law forms the very foundation of thermodynamics, setting the stage for the first, second, and third laws. Without the Zeroth Law, the entire field of thermodynamics would be like a house without a foundation. To summarize, the Zeroth Law of Thermodynamics is all about thermal equilibrium. It's the reason your coffee cools down to room temperature, and it's the principle that allows us to measure temperature. So the next time you see your coffee cooling or ice melting, remember the Zeroth Law of Thermodynamics and the fascinating world of equilibrium it unveils.